Oded Levy, welcome to the Honest Report podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
We're very happy to have you here. So you've recently developed this platform called tryunframed.com. Explain for us in layman's terms what that is.
So it's basically a framework that I built years ago as a way to kind of reverse engineer headlines and like media, pieces that we see that work on us, on our emotions first, and only then we rationalize it. It's came to fruition based on my years of working in the branding and the marketing industries and just kind of crafting messages and visuals and campaigns, stuff like that. And it really bothered me that people fall again and again for things that I usually craft myself, but this time on like a much larger scale, like on world media and stuff. And when it comes to Israel, it's just very evident. So the website is a manifestation of a framework that I built, which is, I just called it the website tryunframed.com, which is you can drop any kind of headlines and any kind of headline from the media or even a seemingly innocent sentence, and you can see how it can be literally weaponized.
Now, what has this project told you about the state of journalism in Canada?
Well, it from the reactions that I got, because this is a project that was, it's a passion project, semi educational project. I learned that people are completely unaware of the forces that work on them when they are encountering media or news, and they're unaware of the framing that even single words can create. And I was invited to give a lecture to grade 8 at my daughter's school, which was very interesting about this. And I wrote on the whiteboard, for example, a sentence like Jewish kids are main victims of hostility in campuses. And then under it, I wrote Jewish students are number one target for online hate in universities. And asked them, okay, what do you like? It describes the same scenario, so-called, but what's the difference? And for example, in this seemingly innocent, headline, the difference between the word victim and the word target is immense. Victim is boxing, a person into an identity, into a state where their story is already told. They have nothing to do about it. And target is putting them in a completely different situation. They can still be empowered. They can still do other things. They still have agency. I concluded that class with phrase that I wrote on the whiteboard. Everybody in school is doing it. You're the only one who's not doing it. Needless to say, I had their full attention there as well. So these kind of power words and power phrases can really impact people in ways that they can't understand. And the media is, the current state of journalism is so that without creating that tension and drama, you can't have clicks. If you can't have clicks, you can't, keep the operation going. It's sad that it's, it's going into one single direction when it comes to Israel and Jewish people in general, but that's where we are.
What prompted you to take this on? Was this following news coverage in the last couple of years?
No, this was way before October 7th, or I should say October 8th, which is when the orchestrated, I'd call it eighth arena of war in Israel has erupted, which is the media. I noticed it in many, many articles in many, many ways years before that, just because that's what I do in my everyday life. And it's kind of frustrated me that many people who are, intelligent and well-read and well-spoken cannot identify these traps. right? So I started thinking like, okay, if there was some kind of educational way I can make people be more aware of it. And about a few months ago, when I dropped everything into AI, started experimenting. I was able to create this tool, which you can just use, with any kind of headline or argument, and basically, again, reverse engineering and like see the machinery behind a phrase, which I find it fascinating myself, and it kind of pulls the veil out of many media outlets and how they use words and frame stories when most of us are not even aware of it.
Now, how did you build this project? Not from a technical perspective, but sort of from a rhetorical one. I mean, how did you develop and teach this module how it should measure different wording and what words mean?
Right. So the framework is built on, there's like 8 modules that I created again some years ago. It's based on works of, like, I'm obviously standing on the shoulders of giants. So one of the people I really admire, yet my fascination with him is problematic, is Edward Bernays, who's the guy who changed the term PR from propaganda to public relations, who was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, who operated about 100 years ago. You know, he's the one who created, for example, the tobacco industry came to him and told him that women are not smoking enough, even though they can, because it doesn't seem um, feminine to smoke in public. So he orchestrated something that was called the Torches of Freedom Parade, and he asked all kind of socialites, "How would you like to participate in a march for women's rights?" They said, "Sure." They marched in the Easter Day parade, and at the same time, they all lit up a cigarette as like you know, um, like a way to fight the patriarchy, and tobacco companies were happy. So he wrote quite a few books about propaganda and public relations, which I found fascinating. So his writing really affected me in the way I see media. Another person is Thomas Sowell, the economist, that I really admire as well. And he actually created kind of a filter, which is the third module in my framework, which is all incorporated in these tools on the website, like on the behind the scenes, which he created a filter in which to analyze almost any claim, and almost any claim that is of propaganda nature cannot stand. And there are 3 questions. So one question is, at what cost? The second question is, compared to what? And the third one is, what hard evidence do you have? And then you find that almost any claim that is bombastic and amazing, like and especially like every claim that was launched against Israel, is failing within the first 2 questions of these. So people don't even need my framework or this tool to be able to analyze and be immune to propaganda in such way. Because once you think of things that you read in this frame, like compared to what, at what cost, what hard evidence do you have, the whole false narrative that you see just crumbles, which I find fascinating and liberating in many ways.
Is this then an indictment of the Canadian news media's coverage of Israel and the Middle East?
Yeah, 100%. That's obviously, obviously. And I, like, in many ways, again, I don't know if can't blame is the right phrase, but like, listen, people are busy. They don't have time to analyze and study subjects thoroughly. They want to know like what's happening in the world on one hand. On the other hand, news outlets are, they survive through clicks and through attention, and nothing grabs the attention more than impending doom and urgency and moralizing events that generates clicks, which generates revenue. And this is a whole. So my first module, actually, when I teach it in a way is just to show the environment. So lots of media outlets have basically no choice but to be dramatic, bombastic, and sensational to grab people's attention. And they capitalize on a very old and programming of ours that if we hear a noise in the bush at night, it will have 100% of our attention, versus if we see a chirping bird in the middle of the day under blue skies, right? So the fascinating thing that I think people can do with these tools is just to put like phrases that are completely innocent. Eggs are good for you. Trees are tall. And you can see how with the press of a button, or how people like myself and many others can use simple phrases to make them controversial, to moralize them, and really create two groups of people, one against each other. People use it, obviously, to sell goods and services. Companies use it all the time in their advertising, obviously. But news outlets are selling, they're grasping at our attention, and they are monetizing it. And a lot of them just outright lie, and they know exactly what they're doing.
What do you want to see from this project? I mean, is the goal here to create more informed, thoughtful consumers? Is it to hold the news media accountable? What do you want to see from this?
So one of the responses I keep getting from people who are using it is that they've never seen anything like that, which is interesting and kind of weird. Beyond the individual value, like obviously I'm assuming companies and stuff can use it to get like ideas to reshape their messaging, but it's built in a way that kind of shows the nefarious intentions behind claims, or how they can be used. I haven't thought about really how this tool specifically can create big change in society. If it can, it'll be amazing. But I really think that I think the value comes from maybe parents showing it to their kids, and showing how easily things can be manipulated, and how the truth can so easily be manipulated into showing totally different pictures. It combines to a whole different conversation that I don't address it in this tool at all, which is like social media and how different platforms affect different emotions. Instagram is about envy, X is about rage, stuff like that. But that's how grown-ups are affected mostly. With kids, I think it's very important to show them, and this tool is an easy way to do it, how they have to develop critical thinking about what they see online. They have to. They just, like, I don't think it's optional in these days, because we consume it 24/7. It's not like you used to buy a newspaper and you can choose not to read it or put it aside. That's not how it works now. So if people will stop for a second and observe the forces that are affecting them daily, I think just this pause would offer immense value to the state of the world. I don't think I'm exaggerating, but I think it's definitely to, local, regional, global politics, and all the events that transpire following these frames of thinking.
Oded Levy, thank you so much for your time today.
תודה רבה. Thank you, Robert.